안녕하세요. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동탄 왕코입니다. 너무 피곤해요. 야간이 드디어 끝났습니다. 졸려. 오늘 하루만 쉬고 다시 내일 야간 출근을 해야 됩니다. 오늘 주말에 비 온다 그랬는데 원래 서울 가서 친구들 만나려고 했는데 내일 제 친구 생일입니다. 내일인가 오늘인가? 생일 축하한다. 아, 아, 스트레칭하고 팔굽혀펴기 조금만 하고 끝내겠습니다. 오늘은 자고 일어나서 운동을 해야겠어. 밤에 새벽에.
It was the first time he really came out of his shell in front of the camera.
Trust that you'll listen,
So great that you're here today. It just highlights what's making a difference.
that you'll be honest. I don't want to pry, but what sort of conversations do you have with them? Trust that you'll be accurate. And it was an unprecedented move, very eerie. All the roads have been closed off. Describe the scene that you arrived to. The Apache attack helicopter. This is what Captain Wales has been flying. What do you do with Crimea?
This is Europe's problem.
Do you want talks with them?
What is the point of talking now?
We continue to monitor the government in crisis. This was the Duchess's first news interview. Rare access indeed. That's what it's all about. Max Foster, CNN.
I'm David Culver in Shanghai, China, and this is CNN.
Since George Floyd's death, new videos keep emerging of brutal police tactics used on African Americans. We're now learning of yet another case where a man in custody cried out, "I can't breathe." CNN's Brian Todd has been going over all the late-breaking evidence of misconduct. What are you learning, Brian?
Wolf, these cases have been brought to light in recent days only because of the outrage over the George Floyd killing. Tonight, law enforcement experts are wringing their hands over why these incidents just keep happening.
Hey, get on the ground!
In Oklahoma City, police pursue a suspect on foot after getting reports of a man drawing a gun on another man. Within seconds, Derek Scott is tackled and cries out a now familiar phrase.
Okay, hey, look.
Get your hands behind your back!
This police body cam video was released this week after protesters demanded it. But the incident occurred more than a year before George Floyd's killing. Scott repeatedly tells the officers,
I can't breathe, please.
as police pin him down. At one point, Derek Scott appears unresponsive.
Stay with us, man.
Scott was taken to a medical center and later died. The medical examiner said Scott died of a collapsed lung, that there was no fatal trauma, but that physical restraint, along with methamphetamine use, asthma, and heart disease were contributing factors. An investigation concluded the officers did not engage in misconduct. But this case from Austin, Texas last year is now under investigation. Javier Ambler was apprehended after a traffic stop. He was unarmed and told sheriff's deputies he had congestive heart failure. Ambler died in custody, a death which was ruled a homicide. An investigation determined the officers acted in accordance with guidelines. But these incidents, along with George Floyd's killing, come in years after Ferguson, after the Eric Garner and Freddie Gray cases, have law enforcement experts concerned about why these encounters keep happening.
The majority of police officers do their job and do it very well. But one rotten apple can spoil an entire barrel. And the reality is that the few define the many. And we have to understand that and do everything we can to root corrupt officers, brutal officers, any officer that will engage in acts of misconduct or neglect their duties.
Neglect is what's being investigated in this case. 13 Chicago police officers seen in recent days on surveillance footage, lounging in the office of Congressman Bobby Rush, while heated protests and looting were going on just outside.
These individuals need to apologize to the city of Chicago for their cowardice, inaction, for their withdrawal from the front line, for their retreat in the midst of these assaults.
And in Buffalo, New York, the lawyer for the 75-year-old man who was pushed to the ground by police now says his client's brain is injured.
Change needs to happen, and in some cases radical change, in order to really make a difference depending on the on particular department. Our profession right now is in crisis, and we have to address it.
Charles Ramsey says there is training for officers on how to handle these incidents, training that's going on right now that never took place 20 years ago. But he says, obviously, that is still not enough. Ramsey says police departments have to do a much better job of vetting officers at the moment they hire them, and a better job of teaching police officers about the history of police brutality. Wolf.
Brian Todd reporting for us. Brian, thank you very much. More news right after this.
All new African Voices Changemakers. Create opportunities. Impact communities. Transform lives. Actress Yvonne Orji reflects on her Nigerian roots and her journey to stardom.
Folks who have given Nigerians a bad rap, they're not as much as the folks who have given Nigerians a good rap.
African Voices Changemakers, only on CNN.
Walking into caves that could carry the next pandemic.
Could bats hold the secret to COVID-19? Meet scientists investigating these fascinating animals.
Dr. Shi, got a cough, drop whatever you're doing, get back to the lab right now.
Their mysteries.
What is it about bats that allows them to host these viruses without showing any illness?
And what they might unlock.
Bats might actually hold an answer for treating virus. It's an opportunity.
Bats, the mystery behind COVID-19. Monday on CNN.
Sunday, the Prime Minister of Greece joins Fouad. Italy and Spain have had over 200,000 cases of coronavirus. Greece has had about 3,000. What did they do right? What can the rest of the world learn? Fouad Zakaria, GPS. Sunday.
I'm Melissa Bell in Paris, and this is CNN.
When you travel the world, make sure the world travels with you. Check in, log on, and get connected with all of the latest developments at your fingertips. CNN Partner Hotels. Connected to your world.
I think we're going to have to evolve. The next couple of years are going to be challenging. I don't know if it's a 2-year, 3-year recovery, but we've got to put the customers and our owners at the heart of this, because that's how our business grows and thrives. And we're going to have to innovate. I mean, this industry is going to have to innovate around how it delivers food and beverage, how it delivers the guest experience. And we have teams of people already working and thinking about that. Of what's the hotel stay of the future in this sort of environment?
I'm Clarissa Ward in London, and this is CNN.
This quick programming note, CNN will hold a town hall with 4 of the nation's top mayors, DC's Muriel Bowser, Atlanta's Keisha Lance Bottoms, Chicago's Lori Lightfoot, and San Francisco's London Breed. They'll take questions on race and the coronavirus concerns. Mayors Who Matter airs Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Laura Coates will host that town hall. Finally tonight, as this nation confronts the deadly consequences of the coronavirus and racism, we are all reminded once again that the faces of the pandemic are disproportionately African American. These are just some of the people of color we have lost to the coronavirus who have been profiled by CNN. They range in age from 27 to 94. They live from coast to coast. They are parents, children, spouses, and neighbors. 2 of them are relatives of our Situation Room show team. They lived and they died in truly extraordinary times, filled with danger and fear, as well as new hope for a better tomorrow. May they all rest in peace, and may their memories be a blessing. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for a special Situation Room. Aaron Burnett on front starts right now.
Thank you, Wolf. Out front next, protests across the country growing at this hour as the president gives mixed messages about chokeholds and suggests that Abraham Lincoln's legacy is questionable. Plus, he was just 14 when he was beaten up by police because of the color of his skin. And tonight, the former police chief of Detroit is telling his story. And Dr. Anthony Fauci with a new warning for Americans tonight. Let's go out front. And good evening. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, the breaking news. Protests across the country growing at this hour for the 18th night in a row as the President of the United States is missing the moment and the opportunity, instead dismissing the protesters who have been out there night after night after night.
You had protesting also because, they just didn't know. I watch it very closely. Why are you here? They really weren't able to say.
Their passion for change, of course, is evident, and plenty of them are able to say.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
Instead of responding to this, Trump sending mixed messages about a brutal police tactic that protesters across the country have been calling to end. First saying, generally speaking, chokeholds should be banned, but then sort of going on and adding this.
You get somebody in a chokehold, and what are you going to do now? Let go and say, oh, let's start all over again. I'm not allowed to have you in a chokehold. It's a tough situation.
But it's not a tough call for at least 12 cities and municipalities, including Los Angeles, Miami, and New York. They have all moved to ban chokeholds over the past few days, perhaps because they know what law enforcement knows as well. According to a policy paper from 11 law enforcement leadership and labor organizations, including the Fraternal Order of Police, quote, these are extremely dangerous maneuvers that can easily result in serious bodily injury or death. So the president not listening to protesters or police or his advisors. White House aides, his friends in business, members of Congress, all have been trying to tell him that he needs to change his tone, that he needs to rise to meet the moment. But he seems to trust himself and no one else. His instincts got him where he is, and he thinks they will help him win again. He believes, and he said, here, you'll hear him, that he has done more for the black community than any other president in American history.
몇 분 했지? 14분밖에 안 했어.
More for the black community than any other president. And let's take a pass on Abraham Lincoln because he did good, although it's always questionable. In other words, the end result.
Well, we are free, Mr. President.
But we are
free.
Pretty well. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, no,
so I'm going to take a pass on Abe, Honest Abe, as we call it.
Pass on Honest Abe. Wow. I want to get straight to Shimon Prokupez. He's in New York among the protesters on this Friday. So, Shimon, what's happening where you are tonight?
So we're in Brooklyn tonight, Erin. The last few nights we've been on the show, and we've been from Manhattan. We're in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, several hundred marchers. We started at the Barclays Center, which, as you know, 2 weeks ago was the center of a lot of the protests and some of the tension with police. We're here now walking through the streets of Fort Greene, and this idea that any of these protesters are going to let up anytime soon, I think we're seeing a lot of different signs here that that's just not going to happen. They gathered here around 5 o'clock, and they've been marching. Now they plan to perhaps head to Manhattan, where there are other protesters marching as well. Of course, one of the things that happened at the Barclays Center, Eric, just quickly, is that John Baptiste, the musician and the band leader for the Colbert Show, came out, played music, they were dancing and singing, but then he urged them to go out and to keep fighting. And then, most importantly, he said, you gotta vote for change. And so that is what's been going on here in Brooklyn, Erin, and really no sign that at any time do these protesters indicate that they're gonna let up at any point, Erin.
All right, Shimon, thank you very much. As we said, this is the 18th night, and I want to go now to Caitlin Collins. She's at the White House. Caitlin, it is clear that there are many around the president who recognize that his tone here isn't helping, that he could be acting very differently, but he is not budging.
No, he's not. And he's someone who has always believed that his instincts are better than the advice that he gets from his political advisors, and that's something he's relying on once again. The question here is this time different? Because you see the rest of the nation really moving in this other direction. NASCAR banning the Confederate flag, as the president is saying he won't rename those military bases that are named for Confederate leaders. The NFL is apologizing. Republicans even are saying we've got to do something on policing reform, and they are rushing to put some kind of legislation together. And the president just has seemed resistant to a lot of that. And it's not for a lack of trying on his advisors' part, because we've spoken with several sources who said they have had to try to have moments where they try to get the president to meet the moment here, because they are very aware of the political calculus here, and their concern is that the president is going to lose what inroads he had made with black voters and with suburban women voters. And of course, they are just 5 months away from the election. And then you see the president, stoking these wars, these cultural wars that he did in 2016, because he believes in part that's a winning strategy. And you saw it even today in that interview with Fox News, where the anchor tried to talk to him about the meaning of that phrase, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, and the president tried to say that it had a dual meaning, that he got it from somewhere else, other than, of course, the racist police chief in Miami in the 1960s. It's things like that that his political advisors are worried are not going to work out for him this time. So the question, of course, time will tell, but we should know that when it comes to that legislation, the White House still has not said which police reforms it is that they'll back.
All right, Caitlin, thank you. And I want to go now to Cedric Alexander, former chief of police for DeKalb County, Georgia, and the former president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, Gloria Borger, our chief political analyst, and Bakari Sellers, Democratic former member of the South Carolina House of Representatives, author of My Vanishing Country. Thanks to all. Bakari, the president, you heard, said he's done more for African Americans than any other president, perhaps including Lincoln. He then continued to say, call what Lincoln did, quote unquote, questionable because of the, quote, end result. Okay, so what do you hear there?
I mean, first of all, I have to call it asinine and ignorant. We stand here today, 57 years since the assassination of Medgar Evers, who was the first field secretary of the NAACP, who was assassinated. And we don't, I say that only to say that the president usually has no frame of historical reference, and today is no different. I find it intellectually dishonest and weird in the position that this president of the United States talks about that he's the best folks since Lincoln. Even this time, he'll give Lincoln a pass. When in the same breath, he will Confederate generals and those people who lost, he still probably war with Northern aggression.
20분 했네요.
So I find myself having to chuckle. And let me just say this, Aaron, so viewers understand.
오늘 쉬는 날이지만은 내일 똑같이 야간 출근이에요. 그래서 생활 패턴을 똑같이 해야 됩니다. 똑같이 낮에 자고 밤에 일어날 건데
The president staying on the
일어나서 턱걸이
sidelines and saying a
하겠습니다.
bunch of nothing is actually better for this country than him himself or injecting himself in a dialogue which he's able to handle.
You know, Gloria, the president does seem to be missing the moment.